We are live. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 11. We have a very, very special guest, a really new, dear friend of mine, Ian from Bit Trees. Um,
Yep.
where can I start? So, from one of the most, one of the best singers I've heard in live performance in a very long time.
Oh, that's
It's
nice.
not it's not tech related, but still, he we met at ETH Portland. He definitely showed us up at karaoke. I was like, okay, this. So first, he like kind of like intros me into like his greatness, but like, hey, check out this music NFT, and I was like, this is you. Like I'm driving, I'm like, wait, this is you. I'm like, you're gonna demolish us at karaoke. And so then we get there, and of course, he's a crowd stopper. And then he invited me to a show up in U District a couple of weeks
Yeah.
back, and come check him out. And again, was blown away by his performance set. So that's just one facet of the many facets of Ian. He also is a community manager, account rep, business dev guy over at BitTrees. And yeah, man, I'm sorry to steal your thunder in your intro, but yeah, man, just tell the people a little bit about yourself, background, where you're from, and maybe kind of venture how you got into Web3.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first, let me just say, like, thank you for all the kind words. The respect is very mutual. I think you're an awesome person, so I'm like super stoked to be here right now. So my origin story. I was born in Seattle, um, and kind of was very aimless through my 20s. Like I was just like making music and art and stuff, and just kind of which ended up getting me into bartending. And it was actually through bartending that I got into crypto. Um, so the CEO of my company, Jonathan Heinlein, was a regular at the bar, and that was actually the bar that I was performing at. That you came and saw us, the Blue Moon Tavern, which is like an historic bar in Seattle, and just like a really just the best kind of dive bar you could ever imagine. And I absolutely love that place, and I love playing music there. And so I've met a lot of people important in my life there, and I bring people who are important to me there too, because I'm like, this place is amazing. So I met Jonathan there, and he was just this random guy with a Bitcoin hat that would come and sit and listen to his headphones and mess around on his computer and kind of eavesdrop on people talking. And I had been talking about how I was buying a house, because this is a number of years ago, obviously. And we started talking about investing, and he was like, "Yo, have you heard of crypto?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm always open for good investments, but I'm like, is this not a scam? I'm like, and then I got red pilled real hard and bought some Bitcoin, got into Ethereum, and it started, like I got in before the big pump and then the dip. So like I'm still up pretty significant percentage on my portfolio. So like, people are like, oh, Bitcoin's I'm like, I'm not worried, you know. I'm
Right.
still up like hundreds of percentage points at this point.
Mhm.
So not to like brag or anything, just like that was sort of where I got into crypto. And then the pandemic happened, and so like my bar closed, and I was talking with Jonathan. He was talking about how he was wanting to get this company off the ground. And I was like, dude, I'm literally not doing anything except for like eating a lot of food and like watching cooking shows and you know. And so we started doing bit trees, and that's been, it's been about almost, it's 2 years, 2 years, I guess. A little
Nice,
bit, a little bit less than 2 years now for me. Jonathan
nice.
has been like, yeah, he's been doing it for a little bit longer. Obviously, before he had like the idea, but the actual foundational creation of the company was with myself, Ben, who you met briefly,
Mhm.
who's the CTO, and then Jonathan. And so we sort of put the like pillars of the business as like it's business, technology, and community, which is also like BTC for Bitcoin, because we're
Mhm.
nerds. And so Jonathan's like sort of the business foundational like person, and then Ben's the tech person, and I'm the community guy. Although we kind of all, like, besides like doing the tech stuff, we all wear a little bit of each other's hats. you know, especially I've been doing a lot more of the biz dev stuff lately. So yeah.
Nice, nice,
Is
nice.
that a sufficient answer?
That's amazing. So I'll also give you some time to do more of like a shameless plug on Bittrees because that's why we're here. One of the reasons why we're here. But tell us a little about what Bittrees does. Tell us a bit about where we can find you guys. Tell us a bit about maybe some cool projects you guys have worked on. People would love to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So ironically enough, like Bittrees originally started out as we were trying to do like a Zillow for the metaverse.
Okay.
And yeah, which is like, I think there's still probably like that kind of project in the future, but it's
Mhm.
hard with like, platforms like OpenSea. You're like, is this redundant to do? But
Right.
we started off doing a lot of metaverse projects, and so I was, and that's kind of how I got involved, was like through music stuff. And then we started helping people with NFT launches. And so like our current business model is like, we were working on like proprietary technology like the NFT wrapper. We're about to launch the V2, and I sent you over the white paper. You had a look at that. And we've got a bunch of different other protocols. One's called like gold, which is essentially like a way to like wrap to like take like wrapped Bitcoin as like a bearer bond. There's a bunch of fun little like weird financial stuff that I don't exactly understand, but is kind of genius. But mostly what we've been doing is doing like sort of like boutique like NFT launches. So our most recent project we did was called Dickheads, and we did the front and back end of that. And I can't, there's an NDA, so there's like I'm not allowed to talk about certain like the people involved, etc. But it was a really fun project. It's a cool like PFP. But I think it was fun for us because it was our first like major like generative NFT launch, because we've done a lot of things where we do audio NFTs. So we've done a bunch of work with DAO Records, and we've done a bunch of work with like Sup Records, which is another like NFT label. So obviously I'm into that because I'm a musician. So it's where like my heart is in the space. And so those are the things that we've been working on. But we're also like, one of our main technology partners is uh Viv Technology, and their token is WIVA, like Viva or Wiva or whatever. They're European, so I never know how to pronounce it properly, and I
Okay.
hear it like 6 different ways. Yeah, and so they do. It's like an index fund, like an NFT index fund built off of wine, because like wine is one of these like assets that always, it's like good wine always goes up in value, right? And to the point until it's like drank or corked, right? And
Right.
so like a lot of the wines that they're doing are actually like wines that last really long time. So like higher tannin wines, like like Bordeaux's and things like that. So these things that will have like really a very shelf stable, long term investments. And so we're doing a lot of the like the tokenomics and building out the back end of things for them. So we got our hands in a lot of stuff.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well,
Yeah.
and if anyone wants to find more information about you guys, where can they find you guys?
So our website is bittrees.org. And my CEO always wants me to direct people also to our like metaverse location. So we have our unofficial official headquarters is in CryptoVoxels, and that's at bittrees.xyz.
Love it.
So
Love
both of those you can find the information.
Love it. Love it. Love it. If you guys are definitely have any interest, I would suggest checking these guys out. They're doing some really, really cool stuff. Like Ian said, I was able to read the white paper and just combining like these DeFi products with vaults. And I won't tell all your guys the secret sauce about it, but it's fascinating stuff. I think these are really good people to know in the space, probably going to blow up and get in early. Maybe you guys will drop a coin soon so we can get a BitTrees coin. So
Yeah, it's definitely on the roadmap. It's, I think sometimes people drop their coins too early, and so it's like, I think we want to be less, sorry to interrupt you, but we just want to be a little bit less like speculative with our own, company value.
oh, no worries, no worries. For sure. I think, there's I think the reason why it could be really cool for you guys is because you guys do have true value exchange and value creation. Those two pillars or metrics are like key when it comes to creating a coin. right? Like there's actual utility within what you're doing. Like AR Weave as an example. Like there's true utility in me storing my NFTs within this ecosystem and getting value back as well. So you guys are definitely in the right track. Obviously, the more points that you figure out how to create value and exchange it is going to increase the level of utility for the coin. So, I'm here for it. Just let me know when I can put some money in.
Nice.
All right. So, I guess we can also kind of talk a little bit about where we met. Um,
Yeah.
Again, everyone, we met at ETH Portland. We're both in Seattle, so we both kind of found our way there as independently. We met. I was sitting at a table talking with like maybe Peter and some guys to my left, and I heard some commotion to my right. And I, and I had on a mushroom sweater. I'm not sure if you guys were already talking about extracurricular activities, and the sweater
Yeah.
just happened to fall in line there. But it definitely got to the point of talking about trips and things of that nature, which is super fun. And we just connected, hit it off. It's like, hey, where are you going? Let's go to this next place. Well, I'm driving. Hop in with me.
Yeah.
And just spiraled into karaoke nights and all the things. So, what was your take on
Yeah.
it?
ETH Portland. I actually had so much fun at ETH Portland. And when I got there, I was like, ooh, this is a really small event. Like I'm used to things along the lines of like ETH Denver and NFT NYC, where you're like, this is a huge event. There's like big parties and stuff. And ETH Portland was a lot more along the lines of a hackathon, right? Like it was like that's like first and foremost. But I honestly feel like I did some of my best networking there because of the fact that it was small and like there was more of an opportunity to create these like one-on-one relationships with people. Like here we are right now.
Mhm.
Uh and also, I don't know, it was just like I think that because it was a smaller event, like there was like less pressure for me to like perform. And I was just talking to people about, I was just like being myself and just like, hey, I love like talking about psychedelics. And I find with the crypto community, like a lot of it has to do with like, especially in like the biz dev side of things, like I'm not going to start talking about my company until we've talked like a couple times, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I'm more interested in getting to know people and then like, oh, can we also like work together, right?
Mhm.
And maybe that's not the right approach for everyone, but it seems to like work for me. And yeah, I don't know, we just made some good connections with people at ETH Portland. Also Grace, I ended up catching the train from Portland to Seattle with Grace, and we had like a whole like 3-hour conversation about life and the universe and everything. And I think that's one of the things that I love about being able to go to events like that is meet new people and create, community within this like weird ecosystem of people.
Yeah, I agree. It was a lot more intimate for sure, right? There was, like you could tell just at like something like East Denver where you're talking to someone and they're just waiting to exchange the telegram with you so they can go talk to the next person, or everyone's in line to get, let me get your telegram. You didn't even talk to me. We didn't
Yeah.
even have a real exchange, but you're ready to go talk to the next person. So you need to get mine so you can just go real quick. And everyone's, you hit it right on the head. So I don't even have to repeat that. But, I think the approach that you take in terms of being people centric first is just innate. I think, even if you're in any other industry, that probably would still just be your innate natural ability to communicate. Your emotional intelligence guides you well in that regard, because you may not
Thanks.
have noticed, but like everyone just kind of gravitates towards you, right?
Oh,
Like, you have like this kind of like gravitational pull. And so you're not afraid to speak. You're brash in a good way. Um, you know, it may rub some people the wrong way, but that's just their cup of tea, right? But I personally enjoy it because it's authentic. You're not trying, you're just being you. So I think in that realm, like I said in the beginning, it's innate. Um, so keep up the good work in that regard. That's a good skill to have, especially now, right? Apparently, I guess soft skills are also big in the space, right? Like
Yeah.
how big as soft skills are big in the space. In addition to just being able to write up a smart contract or create a DApp. So I think there's a good balance between all of it. Um, but maybe tell me about some of the things maybe that you didn't like at ETH Portland.
Ooh, that's
Ooh,
getting so the food wasn't great,
the
right?
food.
There was like some of the Mexican food that we got was like all right. That was pretty good, but like it was just like Domino's pizza most of the time for lunch. And
Hmm.
I was like, eh,
Crates,
you know, yeah,
crates on crates on crates of just
yeah.
30 pieces of pizza at a time.
And like I understand the sort of like I guess it sort of makes sense, like I think a lot of people will eat that because it's there, you
Hmm.
know. I the coffee was fine, right? I mean, it was like all the Starbucks coffee, so I was like, you know, they had it the yeah, I mean, obviously like I'm because I'm from Seattle, like I'm actually I will say that I'm a bit of a coffee snob, and it's funny like Starbucks, I'm like it's very low on my list of things I want to drink. Like I actually have like a subscription to a local like Washington roaster that like mails me my artisanally roasted coffee beans, and I have my like special grinder, and I produce, I do the whole thing, and I have a very daily routine of how I consume my coffee. So, but it was nice to have different roasts, like that's usually it's just like calf and decaf, but
Right.
so I would say it would have been nice had there for like the coffee side of things to be more of like a smaller local business support. Like that's one of the things I really loved about ETH Denver was they had that coffee shop inside the castle, and it was
Hmm.
like a local coffee shop that was like doing the coffee orders there, you know?
They did really good in that regard of impacting and tying in the local community, right? Like,
Yes.
even like from like Gitcoin, they're from Denver. And so I watched the founder's speech just about how they created all the impact and quadratic funding for downtown Denver through their efforts and ecosystem, which is super cool. Um, it's funny because I'm going through the application process for well, I've been approved, but we haven't our venue for the summer hasn't been selected yet. I actually had a conversation with them last week, and I'm like, I need to change my application. They're like, why? I'm like, because I initially pitched for, you know, Humanity Rocks, shameless plug. um, but I'm like, we need to talk about like what they did in Denver and kind of bring that here to Seattle. I'm like, Seattle
Yeah.
is such a vibrant city. And if we can have like this Web3 impact through events and onboarding and things of that nature, it would have a true reflection of what the city is about. Like there's a huge tech community here, obviously, but then there's like this underbelly of like Web3 enthusiasts that don't even really know each other, right? And I
Yeah.
think if we start making more noise, we'll start getting more attention from the FANG type of corporations, and they'll want to have more visibility, have more interest. We'll kind of keep them at bay, but more people from those communities will dive into this community, and it can sprawl our ecosystem here in Seattle. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. I love that. I love that idea. What what may have outside of food? What may have like projects that you have seen? What kind of projects may have stood out to you at ETH Portland?
I really liked the projects, especially the project that Peter was working on. Like he did the sort of like the athletic one with the machine learning, like how to like do the handstand. That
Hmm.
I just thought that was a really cool project. And also I liked the other project that Peter did where it was
What the
the
fuck is
like yeah, exactly, the what the fuck sort of project where it's like 30-second snippets of what something is and how it's also like community generated, and I thought that was a really cool project as well. Speaking I will say the other thing I thought was weird. I'm gonna just backstep a little bit.
no,
The whole presenting process was really weird because of how the organizer was like taking like was like watching from the very sideline, and as the time was counting down was like taking steps up the step. Remember that?
Hmm.
Like was like taking a step up. And you're like, just have a timer.
Right.
Just like have a right. If they have a 5 minute time limit, just have a timer with like a
Or
remote
gone,
control.
right? Or gone.
Yeah, or on your phone. But like it was stressing me out as someone watching, seeing her take a step up and just like standing there and like looking at the time, and then she would like take another step towards them, and you're like, it's so ominous, you know? It was
Well, I think, I don't. There's very simple solutions to fix that for sure.
yes.
I think, even like very low fidelity, like you mentioned, like just a phone, or like just telling someone like, here's a timer, we'll put it up on the podium for you, we'll press it, you start, you look at it, stop it. There's a 30-second here or there. Most people were there for the presentations, right? We wanted to see what people were going to present, and at the very end, we stayed this whole time. So I think if she would have just did that, but at the same time, I don't know, maybe she may have felt, I guess I'm trying to be empathetic towards her as well. Maybe she felt, understaffed, or I don't know. Maybe she felt like there was some necessity. I don't know, but I don't know her
I mean,
perspective.
she has enough money to hire people. I mean, like she was talking about how she's an accredited, investor. That's like a lot of money. So, and like there was the like tech side of stuff, like there were people like filming, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to like disagree with you. I guess I'm
And that's
probably a little what's
that's
that?
no, that's accurate. There were, I forgot about the whole camera media team on the whole right side.
Yeah, so I think, maybe it just had to do with resource allocation and availability of people in Portland, which is a small city. Like it is a major city in the US, but it's not LA, it's not Chicago, it's not New York, right?
Right.
It's not even Seattle, and like Seattle's not that big of a city comparatively.
And technically it's not even Portland, it's Vancouver, Washington.
Yeah, yeah, we were in Vancouver. Yeah, that was the other weird thing, right? There was East Portland, it was in Vancouver, and I was like, this is a lie.
Right.
I mean, it was probably just it made more sense, economically to hold it there. And it was a good like the space was the right space for people,
Mhm.
and Portland, it wasn't that far away. I think I spent most of my off time in Portland. We definitely had some fun. The most fun night, you ended up going back home to Seattle, and I won't throw anyone under the bus about the kind of Portland fun that we had that night, but it was a good time.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about the fun you had, why not? I mean, like you
Yeah.
said, there's no nothing's off limits.
Yeah. Well, so the last night that we were in Portland, everyone was like, "Oh, as we're in Portland, we have to hit strip clubs because this is like a Portland thing."
Right.
And like I was obviously in support of that, but I was also happy that I wasn't the one that made this suggestion. Like some of the women were the ones who were like, "We have to go to the strip club." And I was like, "I agree with you." As as a feminist, I am supporting your decision to go to the strip club. Yeah, and we had a really good time.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was like, yeah, I'm leaving tonight. I'm going back home. I
You
made
know
the
that
and it was but I still, I met, Jennifer prior to that. I actually met Jennifer at ETH Denver. And so we had a really good talk, just about Web3 and the space and DAOs and systems and tech and the Seattle ecosystem. So that was super cool to have, like, a long, in-depth conversation. So that was cool.
I like Jennifer.
Yeah, super cool. So how about this? What are your what trends do you see on the horizon in Web3?
So I think we're going to start moving away from. I mean, and it's already happening, but moving away from the PFP thing, right? Especially with NFTs.
Mhm.
Uh, I think I'm not going to say it was a flash in the pan, but I think that people are realizing that NFTs are not just JPEGs, right? Like an NFT it's so much. There's so many things that it can be that it's still like incredibly underutilized, right? We can use these things for like municipal tools and the provenance and the contracts that are the underlying part that actually make the NFT are the important part. And like again, we just released a PFP project for an artist, and but I do think that it's we've reached a point of saturation with those, right? Where it's like, what is the utility? So I think we're going to see a lot more utility NFTs in the future, like near future and obviously like distant future. I I think that the markets are going through some stuff right now because just the world economy is going through things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have the FUD of everything that's going on with Ukraine and Russia, right? And I think there's a huge like global ramifications for that people don't always consider too, right? So we're not even fully out of the pandemic right now, right? Like we are finally behaving like it's over, and I think it's because we're moving from pandemic to endemic, right? And I think we had a little bit of this conversation before, right? And so the economic impact of that, like with inflation and everything else like that, is still on the horizon. So I think we're going to see, you know, like large fluctuations in the markets, like we have already been seeing, and that are going to, create in the short term some uncertainty for those of us in Web3. However, I do see a future where like this is where the world is moving, right? Web3 is realistically, that is the future. Like I keep saying, it's like we're in the 90s and Web3 is the internet, right? It's like 1992 and people are like getting the AOL CDs in their mail. They're like, what is AOL?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they're like, what is Ethereum?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're at right now. And so, I mean, we're honestly like even before that. So I think more so like not even talking about what we have in the future. I think that like it's more important to talk about our responsibilities as the early adopters of Web3 is that we need to start onboarding everybody that we can.
Right.
And which is a hard process because people are inherently against new technology, and they're, a lot of people are like, this is a scam, this is a Ponzi scheme, and you're like, it's not, because there's certain requirements for a Ponzi scheme that this doesn't fall under.
So I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I was like, people think this is a Ponzi scheme, a scam. He kind of laughed and he said, "Well, if it is, it's just a more equitable one."
I mean, yeah, and like here's the thing that people don't want to talk about. Like the US dollar is a legal Ponzi scheme,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Like you look the banking institution, which is the creation of debt, which is the underlying like thing that like function that the functionality of our economy, right, is fractional lending. So the bank takes in $1,000 and lends out $10,000, right? And so it's like, oh, I'll take your money and I'll give it to the person before you, which is exactly what a Ponzi scheme is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's legal.
Correct, and that's why he said it's just a more equitable one, which is why I laughed so hard, because I'm like, you're absolutely right. But I do think though that why it's not a Ponzi scheme is kind of what I was talking about earlier. We are creating value, we are exchanging value, right? And as long as that's actually the underlying theme of what we're doing, it's not like, I trade a sheep for your cattle, like how we once were, but that was true stores of value, right? That's how we stored value. I have some eggs, you have some milk, we can do this swap. And then money came into play, and like, which was all a shit show from jump, right? So I agree. I think to your other point about the trends, for us, creating like this ecosystem of DAOs that we're working on, the experience DAO, it kind of came exactly from what you stemmed on in terms of utility. Like we saw that first we're going to have PFP art, the next wave was going to be utility, and then we thought like, what's after utility? And in my opinion, it just had to be experience, right? You have to experience your NFT, and that's why we came up with the DAO Experience NFT, right? And so now through like the events that we want to do with like Chad, who we met, this is like my third time. Shout out to Chad, my man, from East Portland as well. So doing different types of events in that nature, so people can be onboarded through doing, and not just traditional engaging in terms of like clicking a button and chatting something online. Like get out the house, come see how you can use this in your city. Come see how this can impact in an event in your your normal daily life. So I definitely agree with you on that front. Um, kind of thinking as you were talking about trends, I feel like we're kind of in a like like the whole thing with Web3 is like for value creation to not to be a Ponzi scheme is you want to be circular. You want to create a circular economy, right? And so I still feel like to a degree, to your second point of we're so new in the stage, and I feel like we are very new, but sometimes I feel like we're not new, right? Like, but I think it's probably, to be honest, it's because of my own personal bias and like my own personal algorithms that Twitter sends me, and like I'm on Discord, I'm on Telegram, and like
Right.
all the chat. So it's like it's obvious for me to see that this is, like, but then you start to see like the same ideas start to repeat themselves. It's like, hey, we thought about that, or someone thought us had that idea 6 months ago, or in 6 months in crypto is like 3 years. So,
Right.
I started to see that. So it kind of feel like we're kind of going at this like back and forth stage, and we're kind of, I guess this back and forth fluctuation is us figuring it out. Um, but I'm always been like curious, like, well, what's going to be next after the NFT, or the DAO? Like, I think what we're doing is probably going to be a trendy thing soon. Like an ecosystem of DAOs, and like how DAOs can work together, how DAOs can like exchange their coins to create joint ventures. We're even working with like Prime DAO currently on like testing out some of their new solutions around that. And I think that's going to be a trendy space. Um, but yeah, I can't really foresee and predict exactly what 2023 is going to be about in
Right.
Web3, which is fascinating to ponder.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we're going to inevitably see a lot more adoption of like municipal adoption of NFTs, right? Like I think one of the things I've talked about is that your driver's license or your passport, these are things that could be NFTs, or your car title, right? And I think that some of these things it makes sense, and some of them it doesn't make sense, right? Like we see one of the uses for blockchain could be like medical records, right? And I think that in some ways that does make sense, in using that kind of a model, but also I think we have to always be cognizant of what that means for the individual and for privacy. And like I'm definitely I lean towards letting the government know as little as possible about anything I'm doing at any given moment. you
So,
know
are you familiar with so I had a call today with governance DAO, or Governor DAO, and they do POE, so proof of existence, and so
Interesting.
they'll take like your biometrical information, verify you to be you, but they're using like the ZK. I think they're using like some type of ZK roll up to where it's just confirming that it's you, but not. It's verifying that it's you, but it's not giving them all the information about you. And so you can show it's basically to fight against civil resistance within DAOs, right? So
Interesting.
a lot of people within DAOs, or any type of tokenized economy, will try to game the system, right? So how do you prove just you're you, and you get one voice, one vote, right?
Right.
um Things of that nature. And so we talked about that. I think we're going to more than likely end up working with these guys, for like integrating with what we're doing, because I think that's super important. What are your thoughts on things like that? The way in which we're governing our DAOs and organizations.
Well, I think that there's some interesting stuff that was brought up by I think it was a John from, is it Uma? Am I saying that right?
Hmm.
Yeah, it's at ETH Portland, right? About the sort of like what I can't remember if it was like bots that they were using but the process of like verification within DAOs to make it so that it does not make financial sense for people to like buy and sell votes and things like that, right? Because that's I had this really interesting conversation with one of the people I met at ETH Portland, named uh, Joseph, and he was like, when I first entered the space, I was an anarcho-capitalist, right, which is super far right libertarian, essentially, right, like the general like American libertarian is the anarcho-capitalist, right, and he was like, and then I watched how DAOs function, right, in these spaces, and you see that when the market decides, like people do things like they're selling votes, and there's a lot of like backdoor deals that happen. And he was like, this is not, and I realized that without having sort of these like checks and balances built within the DAO system, that there are inherent problems with that.
Hmm.
Right.
I agree.
So it's like you have to build in this sort of the gamification of like rewarding people for acting like ethically, which
Right, being
is it's just kind of right. Yeah, like you reward people for honesty, you reward people for being themselves, and you disincentivize, dishonesty, which is like I think it's kind of interesting and funny that it's like, and not everyone's gonna act that way either, right? Like
Mhm.
some people just behave in ethical manners because that's how they're just wired as human beings, right? Whereas some people,
No, go ahead.
what was that?
So I think there's like a twofold, right? When you look at DAO participants, you're going to have an active participant or an engaged participant. You're going to have a
Yes.
passive participant.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but passive participants are in it for financial gains, right? So if you think about like Aave or Bankless or Pull Together, right? Like they're doing so well as a financial instrument because a user can put in, 1 ETH and that's it. I'm good. Now I'm going to get paid month over month and I'm passive. My engagement is passive. Now, when it's something like Developer DAO that I'm a part of, where I need to have, active participation for me to get something back, that's where you
Right.
see a lot of distrust and people making multiple accounts and trying to sway people with influence with these multiple accounts, which is crazy to me, but it's something that people are really doing. And I think this needs to be like a fine line of them both, right? Like there should be room for people. If you want to make this, if you're greedy, you want to make a boatload of money, here's how you can do it, right?
Right.
And you can kind of fall within that realm. So there, I mean, but I will say though that from like the DAO idea DAO, which we're starting, it is about experimentation. Right, because as we've all said a million and one times, we're still figuring this shit out. And, we're trying to put a normalness to it and it's changing every single day. And
Yeah.
so I think the more we experiment, the more we test different chains, the more we test different concepts of governance, we're going to be able to index and categorize templates of what if this fits your particular contribution style, this is a route for you to go because look at our experiences with it. Here's our summary of this type of system that we've worked within. And so that's one of the things that I'm excited to work on currently. And then I'd say, you know, one thing that I'm also thinking about is non-transferable NFTs as well. I think those
Yeah.
will be very uh they could be very integral in the future if used right. And I'm thinking about like how we can use it internally, just for governance, right? Like if me and you had an
Yeah.
idea, and we wanted to start a DAO or start a project, well, maybe the founders get non-transferable NFTs, right? But maybe um yeah, but there's all kinds of things that can be done. It's just non-transferable because it's also based on your identity of who you are, right? You're
Yeah.
creating really a proof of identity of who you are, like what is it, proof of humanity, but you're also creating your proof of work through all your levels of contribution. So like with the D work, which is like Trello for Web3, every time I complete a task, it makes an NFT and it's associated back to me. So I can show people like what I've done in the past, like a POAP.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there's lots of use cases, but I think structuring it properly within DAOs, being able to like, so it's like if you want an NFT that you know it won't be transferred, this is like I'm in this for the long haul, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm in, and that's what I think you want. This kind of like what you said earlier, like when you talked about um, getting to know someone before you bring up business, like you're basically building rapport, building trust. And even though we're in Web3 and we're in this like trustless society, I like working with people that I trust.
Yeah.
I like working.
100%.
I'm actually writing a mirror post, and I titled it "Exotic Exclusivity." And I primarily use this title because within DAOs, a lot of times people will just they'll contribute a little bit and then they want to go they can even take your idea that you're doing within that DAO and take it to a different DAO and then go someplace else. It's like you should probably find a home, right? It's like stop dating around so much and just commit, like commit. And I think, when we are looking at Web2 and early stage founders, they commit to one another, right? Like they have a commitment, they have a threshold of duration they're going to be together with one another. And I think even in Web3, it's important to still have a layer of exclusivity, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that a lot of people aren't really talking about just yet. I think it's more like, oh, I can join 100 DAOs and be in all the DAOs. And it's
Right.
like, jack of all trades, master of none, right? Like, where do you want to go and really like sink your teeth into? And which is, but in a sense, I may sound a little hypocritical or contradictory. But one of the other things that we're working on within like this ecosystem of DAOs is creating this force multiplier of contribution.
Yeah.
So if again you work 4 hours and you build something, can that 4 hours work across multiple DAOs? So now you can get paid 4 different times because your work has contributed across the board and it's a force multiplier. And so
Right.
being able to help multiple entities that are working in this, you know, planetary system sphere move forward exponentially, I think you should be more rewarded for that. It's like, when I start learning about DAOs in the very beginning, and I worked with one, and I'm like, well, you're giving this guy more tokens because he spent 12 hours on writing his code, but he did a shitty job. But then I only took me 4 hours to do it, and I did a better job, and I got less than him.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't want to be penalized because I did a better job than someone.
Yeah, I mean, and that's can be some, like one of the inherent drawbacks for people being rewarded hourly for things, right?
Hmm. Correct.
Is hourly rewards inherently rewards at a greater rate for poor work, which I think is interesting, and not to say that people's time shouldn't be compensated, right? Like that's an important piece of the puzzle. It's just like it's how do you automate all of these complicated moving parts of value generation from people, right?
I think so. There's this kind of like trendy thing in Web 2 called slicing pie, and it goes over how startup founders like split the equity in the beginning. And one of the things I do love about it is that if your contribution isn't perpetual, then your equity is going to go down, right? And then like, and if you think about it, that just makes a ton of sense. Like if I put $10,000 into a project, and that's all we have is this 10 grand, and you put in absolutely nothing financially, but you put in 40 hours a week for the next year, then
Yeah.
your contribution is going to outweigh mine, right? If I only put in this 10 grand. And like, when you think about your hourly rate at a fair market value, like there's a fair market value on all of our work. Someone can say,
Yeah.
oh, I'm $1 million an hour. Okay, great. But the fair market doesn't say like you're going to go get $1 million an hour. Now, if you actually are, then that's actually different. But if you
Yeah.
can't go get that, then it's like, when you think even like musicians, right? Some musicians get paid 100 grand a show. Some musicians get paid 10 grand a show, right? Like there's going to be a fair market value of what you can get, what you can command. And there's obviously not a couple, but lots of nuances with music, the market you're in, what you can pull, like where you're at, where your crowd base is. But when it comes to just work, let's just keep it simple. It's fair market value. Let's put some perpetualness around it to where you have to consistently be putting in something to
Yeah.
keep your standard or your threshold of equity, or not go past anything, and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I mean, the music thing is definitely an interesting, because you also, I think you look at all the time that people spend just to be good at their instrument, right? Like some people have been, and it's the same thing with work too, right? Like how much time before where you were, running your company, were you learning how to code? Were you know what I mean? That's
Mhm.
like how a musician gets their chops, right? It's the same kind of thing. And like obviously I do think it's not to go on too much of a tangent, but it is interesting that creative endeavors generally, at the highest level pay exceptionally well, and at anything below that pay almost nothing, right?
Mhm.
Which is I think one of the things that Web3 can actually do to change the equity, the value of people's time in the arts, especially. Not to go on too much of a tangent.
No, I think that actually brings up another good point and idea. So, um, I have been working with a project called Amped Up
Okay.
for a pretty long time now, maybe since like maybe like November. And so the founder, her name is Holly, based out of Paris, but also lives in Portland. So she goes back and forth. Launched Amped Up at South by Southwest.
Wait, Holly, what?
Holly Hagerman.
Okay. I know someone, I know like a burlesque dancer that lives in Paris that goes by Holly. So that's why I was just making sure it wasn't like a weird small world thing.
Fair. So her product is called Amped Up, and it essentially it's a marketplace solving pain points for venues and for underserved musicians, right? Like musicians that have problems getting booked, creating their tours, XYZ. So as a musician, I can come on the platform, and this is all patent pending, by the way. So, good luck at trying to someone else trying to copy it, because she's got her shit tight. And I love
Right.
how that. And so, as a musician, you can come on, you can find the venues and make your own tour route. You can talk to all the venues, handle all the payments, the writers, like equipment, like everything is just right there in the system for you. It, the pain point that it solves for venue owners, you know, no back and forth with emailing and scheduling and being solicited by all these different musicians where you don't really know what the crowd base is like. It just kind of aggregates all the information for both parties. And again, it's really for underserved musicians who can't get booked and aren't getting booked. So it's kind of cutting that out. We actually talked about like figuring out solutions and ways to like bring the project into Web3. Definitely might be something that you know, get your eyes on as a
Yeah.
musician, as someone in Web3, and see what we could possibly do there.
When I think that one of the things that Web3 really promises is automating certain processes that are not currently automated, right? And for me, I generally look at that as like legal processes. But hearing you talk about this, I'm like, oh, like in some ways that's automating like a booker's job. And I think there are things that are beneficial to that. And I think there's also, we don't always want to automate out the human element entirely, right?
Correct. It's funny.
I think that,
Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, I think that part of it is that, like obviously having a system that helps underserved musicians is great, but there's also something to be said about like, people having personal taste, and like that's why they're, like, oh, I'm gonna book this venue because it's like booking a show at, we'll say in Seattle, like El Corazon, right, is a very different process than booking shows at the Moore Theater, right? Like the Moore Theater is a much more diverse crowd. The Moore Theater has plays and live music and has, we'll do like TED Talk type events or whatever, things like that. Whereas like El Corazon is like a predominantly like punk and metal venue, right? So that's also a thing to like, it would be interesting to see like, oh, this venue started using this automation process and suddenly there's all it's like other different, and you're like, is that also beneficial for the vet? I don't know. I'm obviously like my mind is spinning right now with
We
possibilities.
Saba and I, shout out to Saba, um, the best UX UI designer on the planet.
Oh,
You know,
really?
yeah, the LeBron. I call us Shaq and Kobe. So when we were doing like user stories and user personas and kind of she mapped out the entire design of the site or a lot of the design of the site or the backend system. And so we would like go through user personas and we're like, well, what about like the promoter? Like the promoter is such an integral piece of like exactly what you just defined, like setting the vibe, right? Like really curating and crafting this vibe. And so, taking that person out of it could be really tricky. Like maybe the promoter should have access to this on behalf of the venue so that that person
Right.
can, start to facilitate some of this, communication to make sure it's properly curated. Excuse me.
Yeah, and that's a thing I think that algorithms can't do right now is properly curate human experience, right?
Correct.
I mean, it's
Until they
sorry,
can.
go ahead.
Until they can.
Right. That's what I was, yeah, like which is a scary thing also, like do you want that, or is it better to have a little bit of human error, like the little bit of the chaos and uncertainty of being a human?
I like the latter. And I think one could easily say it's because I'm human. It's because I don't want us to lose sight of too much of being what humanity is all about. That
Yeah.
goes to, like, the next kind of like segue into Elon Musk saying in 2023 he's dropping the robot assistants, right? Like they're coming. You can buy a human-sized robot assistant. I don't know if I want a human Siri in the house. Um,
Oh no.
Human Siri
That's
might
that's
get shot. Human
that's
Siri.
yeah, like that's too much like the Matrix or like Terminator. I think we have to be very careful, and like I don't mind sounding a little bit like a conspiracy theorist at all right now, but I do think we have to be very careful about artificial intelligence and androids and artificial, like I think it is worthwhile to create these things, but we have to make sure that we are doing it in a responsible way, right? Like, and also at a certain point these things will have such a level of consciousness as to be not able to differentiate their consciousness between a human consciousness, right? Like that's a thing. And then when that reaches a point, they're going to have certain inalienable rights as a thing that possesses a consciousness, right? Which is,
Yeah,
I mean, I realize it's way far down the line, but
it's closer than you think, right? Like this is,
right.
I mean, if you want to give him more grant, this is all the stuff Elon Musk is working on, right? Like, and like, what do you? So the question is, you know, yes, obviously it's responsibility, but it's kind of in that the governance of the people building these systems, and do you trust Elon Musk at the forefront of it all?
Well, here's the thing: Elon Musk isn't working on anything except for being a voice on Twitter and a face on the camera, right? Like, what actual work does Elon Musk do, right? Like, what
Mhm.
is the actual, like? He's he's overseeing a project, maybe.
For SpaceX, he's doing a lot. Like, he's doing a lot for SpaceX. Like going through. I mean, obviously, he hired some extremely bright minds.
Yes, right. That's a big part of it, right? Like he's hiring really smart people to do a lot of this work, and he's and funding it, right? So that is, and that's an important role to have in scientific advancements, etc. I think maybe part of it is also my own like personal feelings about the we'll say the garbage fire that is Elon Musk. So I'm always like, I don't want to give him any more credit than he is worth to, and I
Hmm.
think that, he's very problematic and does things to boost his own ego more than he's doing things to help humanity, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. Don't discount that at all. You know, someone asked me like my thoughts on him buying Twitter, and I was like, I don't really fucking care. Like let's see what actually happens in the future. I don't expect any radical changes to be for the people. If you are expecting that, you might not find it. That might not happen for you. But we're gonna see. I think, for me, this is, I mean, I hate to shill my project, but that's the whole purpose around Humanity Rocks, is that we want to fight for humanity. We're not trying to go out in the galaxy and other planets. We need to keep what we got. It's beautiful, it's beautifully designed, and let's take care of what we
Yeah.
have messed up, right? Like we've messed up our planet in lots of ways, in variety of ways. But let's just fix what we got and like take care of it, because there are new generations that will live here, and it's our responsibility and like civic duty to make this better than we left it. And some say, forget it. Let's just There's no fixing it. Let's just go create life on another planet. Let's leave. Let's the richest people go there, live, be prosperous, no disease, no anything. And I just I think it's gonna backfire. I think that train of thought is gonna backfire. Like I like air. Like I like air. I like simple things. And as much technology as we create, I still believe in the old adage, there's nothing new under the sun, right? Like,
I I think that there is. I do think it's important for us to start exploring space and expanding and learning how to create, like different parts of civilization on other, celestial bodies. I will say I don't think it should just be a rich person thing though, right? Like I think that that's the inherent like drawback of letting capitalism run everything, right?
mhm.
Is like, oh, you know, God, it's like, and this is again totally off topic, but it's like thinking about like municipal fines, right? Like, like it just means that things are legal for a price, right? Like when you get tickets for things, it's so it's free for rich people and it costs for poor people, you know. And so like the whole concept of space exploration and like using Mars is like utopia for the rich people that they can go, and like that's absurd, I mean, and I think that we have to, yeah, like obviously I'm with you as well on the like taking care of the planet, you know and but I do think that also we have some room to like explore space, but we should do it for the betterment of all humanity and not just for a handful of people that have you know lucked into being born to the quote unquote right families.
Right. I think when it comes to space exploration or civilization on other planets, you know, I don't know. I mean, now don't get me wrong. I understand that our current population, there's currently apparently we're running out of space, but there are so many things and ways around that issue and problem that are sustainable.
Yes.
That it's just like we're going like the worst thing that could happen is that it really did backfire, right? We did create civilization on another planet and it completely backfired, and like millions and millions of people went to planet whatever and were just wiped out and eradicated because oops, something small. It's like, well, we probably never should have went there. right? Like this probably weren't meant for us. Like I don't know, I don't. Here's the thing. I don't. Uh, I'm a little more spiritual than I am religious, so I'm a lot less religious than I am spiritual. And so this is, I guess, my hot take. Like I don't know if out of absolutely nothing, something happened, and then we were just ta-da, here you go. Here's human beings and Earth that's perfectly on this axis, spinning. And if it's any degree to the left or right, it spins out of orbit, right? Like
Yeah.
that can't that's just that is every to me just like a system that we create in terms of computer language. Every system that's designed had some type of designer. like what you guys are like NFT rapper, there was a designer who designed the infrastructure. And I don't know what that is, but to me it's like, well, maybe we should probably just stay on the planet. At least for like from that standpoint. And I guess my parallel is this. How about this? Pros and cons, and I don't know all the pros and cons from traveling space or living on another planet versus staying where we're at and staying put, but it just feels like from what we see, there's more of a race to leave the mess alone and it's due to capitalism, right? Let's just leave this mess alone. We can't fix it. We extracted everything from it. Like we just took everything from it to leverage us going to this new planet, and
Yeah.
then hopefully they don't the same thing doesn't happen there, but it might as well happen. And then something horribly wrong happens on this new frontier. So I'm kind of on the fence, but I lean more like I'm like 70-30, like stay, but the 30% in terms of going is around kind of what you said. Like let's go experiment and learn and find, but to see how it can empower and better Earth.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple different things I wanted to touch on with what you were saying. So I think what, like, one of the designer of this planet or whatever, right? I think if you look at a system which is like an almost infinite universe over an ostensibly infinite amount of time, right? Like our universe is what, like 13.5 billion years old, right? Uh so I think that given the laws of probability and like the sheer amount of galaxies, like this is going to happen, and it's going to happen enough. Like there's plenty of other planets like this that have life or that had life on it, right? Whether or not that directly resembles the human race, like given the vast expanse of the cosmos and the fact that we're like, I mean, we live in an ongoing explosion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's pretty crazy. Like an infinitely dense point exploded, and that's what we live in. And like the explosion's still going because it's the most massive explosion that's ever happened, because that's the creation of the universe, which is in and of itself nuts. And I so there is that aspect of like, I'm not sure if there is a designer or not. Like obviously we've had, and this is like a more of like a philosophical, metaphysical conversation. So I do think that there's something to be said about that. I think given the laws of probability, it's possible that this has happened. Like that there may not have necessarily been a designer besides the laws of physics. I'm not saying that's definitely the case, but I think it's not off the table. What was the other part that we were talking about was, yeah, I mean, I do agree with you also that like we need to focus on this planet, but I think it's just because of our position in it as the dominant species. Like it's our duty to this planet that created us is to create some sort of like homeostasis where we can support our life and not be a detriment to the planet, right? And realistically, you and I aren't a detriment in our daily lives. It's the, 100 or so corporations that are like squeezing the blood out of this planet. And those are also the ones that are like, hey, let's go mine Mars. Let's go find stuff on, you know what I mean?
Correct.
Right.
Exactly.
So, and I do think also like there are a lot of things that we could do with like city design, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm a huge, science fiction person. So like I look at cities and I'm like, why are we not building arcologies, right? Do you know the concept of an arcology?
I had a question.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen Future by Design?
Future, no, I don't think I've future, I haven't heard of that. Future by, I'm gonna write it down right now. Future by design.
So
What is that?
it's a futurist, like Jacques, I forget this guy's last name, and he has all these futuristic cities. It's like he holds like thousands of patents. Like super genius, brilliant guy. And he was kind of basically shut down because his ideas were so simple and so fundamentally right that because they would save so much money, and because they would you know go against a lot of the primary like fuels and oils and things that we use that we want to make money on. They just when people a lot of people just went against them. But it's a great like I think that there's a documentary on like YouTube you can watch. But he has like cities in the sea.
Yeah, yeah. I just looked it up.
Yeah, there's cities in the sea.
Yes, right.
Buildings that build themselves, right? Like all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I think like those type of things and can definitely be implemented. He talked about like his city design where like at the core of the city was like your university, right? And everything kind of like in circular motion goes out and around that has different layers. It's fascinating with the things he thought about, and you got to think this documentary is very old, and he's concepts that he created were very old.
Yeah,
So
2006.
yeah, so if you think about all those things in retrospect to what you're saying, it's absolutely right. Like city design, especially Los Angeles city design, oh my God, it's horrible. Um, Definitely need to be rethought, and we're not iterating on those things at all.
Well, and there's like, yeah, like there's, like one, you have to look at like the impact of like what does it mean to like redesign a city like Los Angeles, right? Like there's an economic cost to the people who live there, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I hope this isn't like I'm not bringing up something that you wouldn't want to like have on your podcast, but like eminent domain's going to happen, right? And like your family and right was a victim of eminent domain from the government, right?
Mhm.
Like that's a thing. Like if we're like, oh, we need to redesign these cities, like what communities are being impacted, where are they going to build stuff, right? That's an
Mhm.
important piece of the puzzle, right?
Mhm. You got really
And like so yeah, like I what's that?
so you got kind of blurry. I don't know if it's if you're
Oh, did
blurry.
I? Oh yeah, this is the I know I lost you for a second.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're talking about the, redesign of cities using, more ecologically thinking forward, and we do have like massive cities like New York, etc., where it's like the city can't function like that, like we can't, like that's not the model for future cities, right? So what is, and how do we, and I look like there's some steps that are being taken. Like I look at the I think it's Stefano Boeri, who's an architect, did the vertical forests in Milan. So it's so far it's two buildings, and they basically they're like housing, they're like apartment buildings that have solar panels on the top, and then down the side they have these like all the patio things that come out have trees. So it's all plants growing on it. You should, if you have a chance, Google it. And basically
What is it called?
they The vertical forests, it's like vertical forest Milan, right? And so it's two buildings. And the interesting thing is the energy requirements for heating and cooling of that building are significantly less than a standard building because all of the organic material on it, the plants around it, help create like heating and cooling, right? They act as an insulating layer. The air quality in this area of Milan has gotten significantly better because it's like 2 acres of forest basically on two skyscrapers. So you have like a basically a forest in the middle of the city now on these two buildings, and it's scrubbing the air, right? So you've got a CO2 exchange, and it's cleaning the water as the rainwater comes down. Like all the things that all the plants that we've gotten rid of by like creating farmland, etc. For us. So that's the kind of solution I think we need to really look into is like how do we integrate more forest and things like that? Like how do we turn these urban spaces into these like hybrid spaces where it's like, yeah, like if there's way more trees in a city by like building these vertical forests, then and you could even use these vertical things, like not necessarily as vertical forests, but like use this sort of vertical concept in like farming and things like that. So there's a lot of different stuff that we could do, right? Using like really like forward thinking.
I love that. I love that. We're a little fortunate here living in Seattle with so many trees, the Emerald City. We get, you know,
Yes.
there's a clear distinction of the air between here and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Like when I first got here, I was like, this is fresh air. Like my lungs feel different, like instantly. Because I lived there my whole life. So
Right.
there's not this gray cloud that's always lingering that you can always see. No, it's just fresh. But I love that. I think that's definitely something towards exploring. And I think even, you will see even Web3 projects even trying to tackle this, like City DAO is one that's in that space. Preservation DAO is another one in the space. And I think, the more and more we have impact, like impact is crazy. Humanity Rocks was like something we started last year, and I'm like, I want to do impact. I'm like, we can make a fuck ton of money anytime, but how much impact can we make? Like, how many people can we help? And things of that nature. I'm like, Web3 is really about empowering people, so let's focus on that and being able to like realize the power of being able to like encode your values into systems once you believe in into systems, like you said, like incentivize people for being honest, right? Like
Right.
it's kind of fascinating um the way in which this is all going. So I'm super excited about seeing how cities can transform within Web3, with and without Web3, to be honest. But also, as you mentioned before, the government systems and municipalities taking on NFTs um, is going to be wild. But at some point they're going to try to like dominate that too, right? Like, hey, use our currency. Use no, every other currency is banned, but the currency of your government, the
Yeah.
cryptocurrency of your government, which is hogwash.
Yeah. This conversation made me think about like what if we actually like created, like I'm like, what if we had a DAO where like people agreed to like move to a city and build a future city like from the ground up and like have like a bunch of web3 people like you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Obviously that's like kind of a weird concept, but we find like a place where it's like a ghost town where there's the basic necessities of like infrastructure, and then use some of these modern thinking and create a city that could be. And that's the kind of stuff that's happening in China, right? Where they're like building these like massive modern cities in the
Mhm.
hopes that they're going to populate, right?
Right. Well, I've seen a couple of instances where people are building cities like what you mentioned, but they're not Web3 specific, I don't think. I know one was like I think it's in Arizona, where everything was like super walkable and sustainable. Um, I think it's in Arizona. I'll look it up and see if I can find it for you and send it to you. But
Well, there's like I know that in Taos, New Mexico, they have all those like the Earth ships, right? Where it's like the whole community of people building Earth ships together.
I don't know about that one. I did hear. I did meet a guy at East Denver who he said he lived like 30 minutes south of Aspen in this community that's they're creating like homes out of old tires.
Yeah, those are Earth ships. Yeah.
Okay, so they're making homes out of old tires, and he
Yep.
wants to put that on chain somehow and like help them sustain themselves. And I'm like, yo, I'm like, if you do that, that'll be next level. And so yeah, man, I think something like that could definitely be done. It should be done, will be done. Um, and yeah, it sounds super cool. I would go. I want to go check it out.
Right.
Yeah, do the things, or at least help plan it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What else is on your mind? Where have you pondered to next?
Oh, I don't know. I've just been, doing the Bittrees thing and then playing music. So I've got some shows coming up in the greater Seattle area. So that's exciting. You know, I'm like trying to think. I'm like, what else can we talk about right now?
Well, I definitely think if you want to shout out more about your shows, we can get more information and repost that stuff too. Um, I guess for me, the only other thing, like I think my hot takes are today. I saw a Twitter space about teenagers and NFTs, and I was like, my daughter's 13, she has NFTs. I was like, okay, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So that was pretty
Yeah.
exciting. I'm considering taking her to NFT NYC with me, maybe,
Ooh.
maybe, maybe. If she can get her project together. I know I'm helping her obviously, but I want her to kind of take a little more initiative, just a little bit more. Um,
Right.
because right now it's still kind of like I feel like if you can onboard a kid into Web3 completely, like you've done a good job. Like,
Yeah.
like kid or like a 65-year-old baby boomer. Um, like those should be like the benchmarks of like understanding education, onboarding or whatnot. Because I mean, not baby boomers, but like that new generation, Gen Z. I don't even know if she's Gen Z at 16. I mean at 13. I don't know if she qualifies. I'm not even sure what the age group is for Gen Z. But if they can understand it, we're really building this stuff for them, right? Like these things that we're doing and foundation we're laying is for the next generation coming behind us. But at least in my personal experience, it's been a little like pulling teeth with her a little bit. Like I'm doing all the things that you love to do.
What?
You love
When was she born?
2009.
So she's at the very end of Gen Z, because
Okay.
2010 is the beginning of they're calling it Generation Alpha.
Okay.
So everything's got very sci-fi names now.
So what's before Gen Z or after Gen Z? Because I had a 10-year-old. Wonder
So
what is
after Gen Z is Generation Alpha. So that's
generation.
Generation Alpha, then it's Gen Z, and then before that it's Millennials. Yeah, because we're both millennials, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think we're like elder millennials too.
Right. I think
I can't remember. Are we the same age, or am I can't remember if I'm older than you or not.
I think you're like a little older.
I'm 83. That's when I was born.
85.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So we are the elder millennials.
So I think I like you said Generation Alpha.
Yeah. That's what it says on the internet.
The trusted internet. Maybe that's what the kids should call their project. We are Generation Alpha. Alpha such a buzzword in Web3. You got alpha, you got alpha, you got to get alpha. So they can just be
Right.
Generation the little kids, and they're so the boys projects is called Solanosaurus Rex. So they're doing like some like
Ooh.
this dinosaur that's a zombie, that has a shark tail, that has a katana. I couldn't have made that shit up myself.
I mean, dude, that sounds great. That sounds like it's right up my alley.
Yeah. So, and then my daughter, her project, she just has like these. She draws dresses, so we made her dresses into 3D, like walking dresses without like a human in it. It's just a dress moving by itself, like no silhouette. So, yeah. So, that should be fun. It's all fun stuff, man. It's all fun. It's all exciting. It's no right or wrong. It's just doing and learning and experimenting and
Yeah,
testing
totally.
and creating as much value as we can. So, okay, so now we gotta play our game.
Okay.
So we have a game that we play.
Yeah, I'm
So
in.
the game is you come up with a word, you think of a word, I think of a word. We combine the words to create an NFT project.
Okay.
So think long and hard. I'm gonna look around, see what I can come up with myself. Um, um, you got your word?
Yes.
You got your word. Okay. I okay, I got my word. All right, so my word is electricity.
Oh, mine is model
Model electricity. Okay, so how do
or
we
electricity model. One of
okay,
those, right?
yeah,
Does it matter which order it's in?
not at all. It's just those two words to create some so now we just talk about ideas that could come NFT projects that can come from those two words.
Okay, an NFT project that could come from the words of model and electricity. Ah, I'm just like you thinking about how you could model like people's electricity consumption, right?
Right. Proof of usage.
Yeah, some sort of proof of usage for and then figure out how you could make that more efficient.
More efficient. Can I is there anything that I can stake or maybe lend electricity to someone else if I'm using solar panels? So I
Ooh.
worked on a project in out of college. It's a super nerdy project, but we got a little bit of funding for it. We built dual axis, modular dual axis armatures for PV panels. So we track the sun this way and this way.
Oh yeah,
Um,
so and that's photovoltaic, right?
correct,
Yeah,
correct.
okay.
And we did this project or this accelerator called Startup Chile in South America. And so we were like, I'm working with like these like crazy mechanical engineers from like Caltech. I'm working like the software and like the pitch. And like we hacked together our application. We made a demo video, but we like time lapsed it so it looked like it was really working. But we were like still tinkering with it. And they're like, "Oh, you guys have been accepted. You're on to the next round." We're like, "Oh shit!" They're like, you have a your next call is with the Minister of Energy of Chile. We're like, "Oh shit!" Like this just became real. And like
Yeah,
we were
seriously.
yeah, we were super transparent about it and told them about where we were at. We got accepted into the project, into the incubator in Chile. And so this kind of reminds me of that, but like trying to see how we can like I can leverage some of that. Maybe you can lend uh you can consume some with like some PV panels. You can lend it to other people. If you lend it, maybe you get a token. um
Ooh.
something of that sort. You're incentivized for lending like you're incentivized from your PV panels to gather the electricity, and then you can lend it to other people who may be in need, or I don't know. I don't know.
I mean,
What do you think?
that seems like yeah, that seems like a good thing, right? A good model for this, right? Yeah, I mean,
What's your take?
I
What's your spin?
I do. I'm like, I feel like those are two tough words to work together. I was just like, I've been selling a bunch of Warhammer 40,000 figures on eBay. That's why I was like, model. Hold on, I'm gonna just grab one of these things so you can see some of the stuff that I've been. Oop,
Very
oop.
cool.
Yeah. It's just selling some of my old stuff that I've collected and consumed over the past, lifetime. Um, I feel like I like your idea, and I will yes and you. So
We gotta do another one. We need one more.
you need to do an entirely different.
No, we'll
An
do
ent-
we'll do two new words, and I'll let you give me
okay,
your.
okay, okay. Um, okay. Let me. Okay, I got something.
All right, my word is broadcast.
Broadcast. My word was pistol. Pistol broadcast. All right, so it'd be like maybe like an NFT project for people who go to the gun range regularly
Okay.
at how they can like track their shooting stats,
Hmm.
so like depending on like maybe there's like a specific like courses you could interact with, right, that would then like give you rewards, right, so it's like a proof of shooting, right,
Mm.
or proof of marksmanship, you
Mm.
know something like that, right? So, and then that would give you like token rewards, right? So, obviously, this would be like some sort of DAO membership. But you could, yeah, like maybe even take like you would take like a scan or a photograph of like your best target for like X amount of rounds. Like maybe you're doing like an IDPA class, which is a International Defensive Pistol Association, right? So there's certain like things that you'll do where it's like, oh, shoot these three targets or shoot this target in this manner, right? So you'd take one of those targets and scan it, and then that would be like what your NFT is, and you could see how it gets better over time or whatever. Or
Mm.
I don't know. What were the
So
words again? It was pistol broadcast.
pistol and broadcast.
Broadcast.
I like it. I
Yeah.
like it.
I mean, just that was a rough idea. I mean, I feel like there's not a lot of like NFT stuff or Web3 stuff for like I feel like because there's generally like a lot of tech people, like there's not a lot of like the firearm owning community
I know a guy.
involved.
I know a
You
guy.
know Oh, do you know some stuff?
Look up. You can look it up right now. It's called
Yeah.
shoxmo.com. And it's
He said
yeah, SHOXX or SH, yeah, something like that with an X, not regular, correct shocks. But look up shocks ammo. And so what he created are these electric bullets that will put you down, but they won't penetrate. And so he wants to get these to like the army, and he wants like law enforcement,
Oh yeah.
and it's the traceability of each shot is put on chain on blockchain.
Interesting. I mean, I'm
And
still,
another fun fact: this guy also owns Tam Tam, which is like the bullet, not bullet, but the like the gun, like massage gun. You ever seen like the massage guns? Like,
right.
so he owns like Tim Tam was like featured on like Joe Rogan was talking about him, like, oh, it's a massage gun that heats up, right? And so I was talking to him about that
Right.
project, and he's like, oh, you guys are into Web3, and I was like, yeah. And he's like, check this out. And I was like, oh shit, this is amazing. Um, so yeah, so he does both. So I have the heated massage. He sent me one. He was like, hey, test it out, see how you like it. And I was like, this thing is fucking phenomenal. But we kind of actually need to revisit the conversation with him because he wanted to come me to come back like Q3 as they were getting their stuff together. But maybe that's a project, doped out, bit trees can work together on with shock ammo.
Right.
That's my guy. Um, so yeah, who knows?
That's interesting. So you have to the magazine charge. I'm looking at this right now. I'm like, the magazine charges the round, and they uses EMD, so it's electromuscular disruption,
Hmm.
right? Which, so it's the kind of thing that, like, it's like a taser, but you shoot
Correct,
someone.
correct.
I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, it just kind of came to mind when we were talking about pistols and broadcasting, right?
Right.
Um, Fun story. So I remember living in downtown LA, and I came down living in like this one of those like really big like apartment complexes where you have to like go down to get your mailbox or mail. And so I'm like in my pajamas going to get my mail, but it's kind of like a high end.
Right.
And so I get in and I see like all this commotion. And so there's a guy like he's fighting with the security guard. Like the security guard is the one who will like buzz you up and like gotta sign in and all this stuff.
Right.
And so apparently what happened was this guy he lives there, but he keeps parking in visitor parking. And so they're like, you can't park in visitor parking. You're a tenant. You have your own parking space. Stop parking. He's like, I just want to park and run in and grab my mail or something in like the front lobby and leave really quickly. So they ended up towing
Right.
his car. And so he's all up in arms and he is kind of like manhandling the security guards. So another security guard calls the police. And so me being me, I decided to just stay and watch and see what was going to happen. I've already have my meal. I could
Right.
easily get in the elevator and go back to my place. And so I'm just sitting here chilling, watching, talking with my neighbors, eating the popcorn. Because we don't get this much action too often. Police come and they're like, okay, sir, we're gonna have to like take you in. They turn him around, trying to put him in handcuffs, and he just smacks the police officer, like, get the fuck off me. And I was like, oh, this isn't gonna end well for you. And then
No.
there's like another police guard that's like a police officer, excuse me, that's like 10 feet adjacent, and he's like, stand clear. And I was like, huh? I looked over, and then he just tased him. He shot the taser gun at him, and the guy just falls and is just shaking, and he like pisses his pants in front of everyone. And I'm like, this has to be such a horrible feeling. I'm like, you just came to get your mail and got your car towed or whatever you did to park here to even like. How didn't you see your car getting towed? So you must have been doing more than getting your mail. Um, but I'm like, that's such an unfortunate situation. But it was
Yeah.
quite comical as well. So such as
Well,
life.
I mean, one, yeah, like, perhaps don't park in the visitor parking, right? And obviously it had to have been longer than getting your mail if your
Correct.
car's getting to, right? Because I don't know if you've ever had like it takes a while for those people who are going to tow a car to show up, right?
Correct.
I don't know if you've
Correct.
ever had to, like, you know, like, had to get your car towed for some reason. It takes them like hours to show up.
Hmm.
But also, I don't know, like, don't get into a physical altercation with a person who's doing their job as the door person at your building.
Right.
And then another point would be like, I I'm the kind of person, I'm like, calling the police is like it's the last option, right? Like, I would literally like to do everything before I have to call the police, you
Right.
know. Because when the police show up, someone could get hurt or killed, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And this dude just got his car towed and he was pissed off about it, right? And he got injured. Like, he pissed his pants and got tased, because that's and obviously, like, you know, don't fight
Don't
with
tell
a
them.
cop.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
that. I mean, maybe he thought he had a little bit of privilege, and he thought that he could do whatever he wanted to do to the cops, and it just didn't work out that way for him. And I was like, yeah, but you're going to jail with no car. And I was like, this
Yeah.
just sucks. This just sucks. But I mean, I would, I've parked in that spot, those same like few visitor parking spots, and I'm just like you have to tow the man's car. I mean, maybe I don't know if I honestly didn't ask any details. Once that happened, I kind of just went back. I'm like, okay, it's time for me to go home now.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff to unpack, obviously. And like, you know, I also like I try to talk to people about how they interact with the cops, like do as little as possible, right? Like uh like literally like I'm like I I exercise my constitutional right not to talk to you.
Right, right.
Am I being detained? Am I being arrested? Why am I being arrested? I will only talk to a lawyer. I'm invoking my constitutional right to a lawyer. Those are the only things you ever need to say to a cop.
Correct,
You
correct. So
know,
it was a quite a interesting event. But his bullets, his shock ammo bullets, made me again reflect on that thought. So we're gonna jump here in a minute, but you have one final thing, one final thought.
okay.
So, have you ever seen De Zeus and Mero?
No.
You might like it. It's a late night comedy show. What do they call those shows? Like a color commentary where they're just like talk, like unscripted.
Right.
And so two guys from Brooklyn, they just shoot the shit. They say all the things that people hate. Or they're from the Bronx, excuse me. Maybe we should get those guys for NFT NYC.
Yeah.
They're on
I'm into
Showtime.
it.
They're on Showtime, right? Like, gotta be big if you're on Showtime.
Big
But
enough anyways, right? Bigger
so
than me.
they always talk about like they end it with like a bodega sign. Like, what do you want your sign to say? So for you, what do you want your not sign, but your not Twitter bio, but your like your
My
web
headstone.
your web three your web3 billboard to say?
Oh my gosh. That's a very that's a question I didn't think I would have to answer. And so I've had no time to think about it. What would I want my web we said web3 billboard to say?
Mm-hmm.
Will work for NFTs. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of
That's
a
great.
joke.
That's
Yeah.
great.
I mean,
Great.
you know, yeah. Uh that's maybe a little bit tongue in cheek, but also not super far from accurate either. Because I've definitely done a bunch of stuff where I'm like, I did this and I got an NFT.
Wait. We cannot leave, ladies and gentlemen. Usually after that we would leave, but we have to tell you. I have to tell you, or the man, the myth, the legend, Ian has to tell you about how he brokered an amazing deal for a hat in the NFT.
Oh my god. That was hilarious. Okay, so we're in East Portland, and this guy Bowen walks up to Alex, right? It was Alex.
Mm-hmm.
And Alex had this like hat that was like, like some
Military hat.
special. Yeah, but he was like, I can't remember the brand. Like it's like a brand of like nice hat, right? And Bowen walks up, he goes, "Oh my God, I used to have that hat. I love that hat. I wore that hat for like 10 years. I wore it till the brim was all like ratty and threadbare and the back fell apart. And I contacted the company and I said, hey, do you still make those hats? They're like, no. And they're like, do you have any back stock? And they're like, no. And Bowen's going through this whole thing, how he like asked the company to like make him a special one off to see if they still have the dies. And they're like, no, there's no way. And then Bowen was like, so it's such a great hat. I'm really happy for you. And he like walked off. And I was like, wait a second. We got something here. And I was like, Alex, are you willing to sell your hat right now? And Alex he's like kind of a quiet. He's like, yeah, I guess I mean, it's a good hat, but I got a lot of other hats. And I was like, okay. So I walked over to Bowen. I was like, yo, you like my man Alex's hat? do you like it worth 3 Ethereum? And he was like, ooh, that's a lot. And so I was like, well, here, why don't we come over here and we'll talk, right? And so he made the offer for $1,200 in Doge, and I was like, nah, man, my Alex over here has been burned by Doge before, which is true, because literally the night before, Alex had been talking about how he had totally gotten, like, he bought Doge at way too high and got burned on it. So I wasn't just making that up. And so I finally we agreed on an Atom Bomb NFT. So hold on, let me go. Let's go to OpenSea right now.
And that's
the Atom Bomb NFTs.
These are the streetwear brand, the Hundreds, Bobby Hundreds, their NFT project.
Right. I didn't even know. I wasn't even aware of that. I was just like, yo, I'm gonna get my buddy a bunch of money for his hat that he got. So anyways, I think the floor price right now is like 0.4 Ethereum. Let me just double check. I'm trying to find my internet's being stupid. OpenSea is being stupid, like OpenSea is always stupid. But Ethereum's obviously it's down a little bit, so it's at 29.35. Yeah, 29.35. So we'll say I think that atom bombs are at like 0.4. I think it was like 0.41. So times 29.35. So currently at the price of Ethereum for a like $50 hat, I got Alex a $982 NFT. It was pretty funny. It was pretty funny. And like the best part about it was Bowen was so happy about that hat. And Alex was like, holy shit, I just got this like really valuable NFT for my hat. And I gave him one of my Bittrees hats. I was like, here you go. So you don't have to have hat hair the rest of the day.
Right.
You know? Yeah, let me look. I'm looking up Atom Bombs right now. Atom Bombs is at the Atom Bomb Squad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the floor has dropped a little bit. The floor is at 0.345 right now. So it looks like we might have been at 0.345 times 29.35. Wait, what am I? Is that 0.345 times 29.35? Okay, never mind. It says it was like $1,000. So apparently my previous math, I entered it in incorrectly. I could actually look at which one he owns too, because he had some offers on it. Let's see if I can find. I can't remember what his ETH address is. Anyways,
nonetheless, it was a amazing deal to watch happen in real time. And like again, that emotional intelligence to make the connection is just innate, man. It's a great skill and ability to have. So feel free if someone wants to buy any of my clothes that I'm wearing
yeah, I'll sell this shirt off your back, man.
Man, that's perfect.
I like your style too. I was talking to you about how much I liked your shirts while we were in Portland.
Appreciate it.
I almost wanted to buy one of the shirts off your back. We're about the same size.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, man. That's so funny. All right. So can people find you any upcoming events? Where can people find you in person or real life if they want to say hi?
Yeah, so obviously my Twitter is at BHH_band, because I just use my it's Blackheart Honeymoon, but it's also Prebes, me. That's just what I use for my social stuff. So that's also my band is Blackheart Honeymoon. We're playing Saturday, the 30th, in Everett, and then May 6th at the Blue Moon. Again, we're playing. So doing some live music. Obviously I'm going to be at some NFT events, so like definitely going to be at NFT NYC. There's going to be some fun stuff. Bittrees is actually sponsoring one of the karaoke parties, so that's going to be lit. I have you as my +1, Jamal, so I hope that's okay. I'm letting you know right now, and it's good. It's cool. It's like all the like music people and it's Uh, my friend Anne Marie is it's her and this guy Colby, and I can't remember. She works for Club NFT, so it's like right click save, which is the media branch of Club NFT.
Okay.
And so they do like a bunch of like music stuff. So it's gonna be lit. It's a bunch of music NFT people, and like last year, people like seriously had some hardcore FOMO. So this party is gonna be dope. So if you are in NFT NYC and you manage to go to that party, June 22nd at 9 p.m., you'll see me there, and I'll sing you some karaoke songs. And then
Okay.
besides that, I don't know, go to bittrees.org or bittrees.xyz to check out what us folks are doing in the Web3. And Jamal, thank you so much for having me. This has been fun. I love talking to you, and I love answering questions. So,
Man,
and
thanks.
also all your kind words.
Thanks for joining us. It was definitely a pleasure to have you. This will not be the last time. We gotta get some more people so we can have some bigger conversations and some round
Yeah,
robin talks. And then obviously, my partner in crime, Saba, couldn't make it, but gotta introduce you to Saba. She'll
love
have
to.
a whole nother vibe, amazing vibe. She's definitely a vibe setter. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Catch us on our next episode. This is episode 11 with Ian, and we're out.
All right.